Every country that produces great footballers extracts a different price to do it. Not the same sacrifice in different jerseys. 12 nations. 12 completely separate things taken from the player before the world ever learns his name. The talent looks universal on the pitch, but the cost behind it is written in a different language in every country. Here is what each one actually takes. Brazil. Brazil produces the most naturally gifted footballers on earth, and the price is paid in childhood, in places the cameras never show. The structural reality is that the overwhelming majority of Brazilian professionals come from poverty so severe that football isn't a dream, it's the only exit. A boy is identified at 7 or 8, and from that moment he carries the financial survival of an entire family on a skill he barely understands yet. The sacrifice isn't effort, it's the weight. While other children play for joy, the Brazilian prospect plays knowing that a missed opportunity sends his family back to nothing. Players are sold abroad as teenagers, shipped to Europe before they can legally drink, their childhoods converted directly into remittances. The country exports more footballers than any nation on earth. Brazil doesn't lose its talent, it sells it, one childhood at a time. Spain. Spain demands a sacrifice most countries would never ask of a child: the surrender of individuality itself. Inside academies like La Masia, a player is not taught to be brilliant. He is taught to disappear into a system, to value the pass over the goal, the collective over the self. The structural detail is that the Spanish model strips away the very instincts other nations celebrate. A gifted dribbler is retrained into a one-touch component of a machine, his flair sanded down until it serves the team and nothing else. The sacrifice is the ego. From the age of 6, the Spanish player gives up the dream of being the hero so that the team can become unbeatable. It built a golden generation that won everything in sight, but every player inside it traded the chance to be remembered as an individual for the chance to be part of something no individual could achieve alone. Argentina. Argentina produces world-conquering talent and then watches almost all of it leave. The sacrifice here is the homeland itself. The country's economy is so volatile, its currency so unstable, that no Argentine club can keep its best players past adolescence, and Europe takes them young. The structural reality is a one-way door. A boy who leaves at 13 or 14 may not see his family for years, building his entire adult identity in a foreign country whose language he doesn't yet speak. Lionel Messi left for Barcelona at 13, alone, his growth treatment paid for by a club an ocean away from everyone he loved. The sacrifice is belonging. The Argentine player gives up the country that made him in order to become the player it needs him to be. He wins the World Cup for a nation he stopped living in decades earlier. England. England takes a sacrifice that doesn't show up until the player is already broken. The English academy system is the most expensive talent machine in the world, and its structural cruelty is the volume of children it consumes. Tens of thousands enter, a fraction of 1% ever play professionally. The boys released at 16, having given their entire childhoods to a single club, are dropped into adulthood with elite football skills and no qualifications, no plan, no identity outside a game that just rejected them. The sacrifice is the safety net. England asks a child to bet everything before he's old enough to understand odds, then keeps the ones it wants and discards the rest without ceremony. For every Englishman who lifts a trophy, there are 1,000 who gave up the same childhood and received nothing in return for it. France. France builds its footballers in the suburbs the rest of the country tries to forget. The structural engine of French football is the Banlieues, the immigrant outskirts of its cities, where poverty, exclusion, and concrete pitches forge a specific kind of player. The sacrifice is identity, split in two. The French prospect is often the child of immigrants, raised between cultures, asked to represent a nation that hasn't always represented him back. He gives up the simplicity of belonging fully to one place. Clairefontaine, the famous National Academy, pulls these boys in young and polishes them into the most coveted athletes on earth. France has produced more World Cup talent from its margins than most nations produce from everything they have. The country takes its greatness from the neighborhoods it overlooks, and the player carries that contradiction for life. Germany. Germany sacrifices something less visible, but no less total: spontaneity. After a catastrophic decade, Germany rebuilt its entire football system from the ground up into the most structured developmental pipeline ever designed. The structural detail is that nothing is left to chance. Every player is measured, slotted, and developed according to a national blueprint. His progress monitored against data from the first day he enters the system. The sacrifice is the freedom to develop naturally, in his own time, in his own way. The German player is engineered rather than discovered, every instinct shaped by a plan he didn't write. It produced a World Cup and a conveyor belt of elite professionals that the world tried to copy. But the cost was the chaos and creativity that can't be planned, traded away for a consistency no other nation could match. Italy. Italy asks its players to sacrifice the very thing crowds pay to see: the joy of attacking. Italian football is built on a defensive philosophy so deep it borders on religion. And the structural reality is that even gifted attacking players are taught from childhood that conceding nothing matters more than scoring everything. The sacrifice is Flair, surrendered to function. The Italian prospect learns positioning, discipline, and tactical sacrifice before he learns to express himself. His individual brilliance subordinated to a system designed to suffocate opponents. It produced some of the greatest defenders in history and a national style that won World Cups through sheer control. But every Italian player pays the same price, giving up the freedom to play beautifully in exchange for the power to make sure no one else can either. Netherlands. The Netherlands demands that a player give up the comfort of ever having one fixed role. Dutch football is built on a philosophy where every player must be able to play every position, to defend, attack, and create interchangeably across the entire pitch. The structural detail is that this versatility is drilled in from earliest childhood. The player taught never to belong to a single space. The sacrifice is specialization, the security of mastering one thing. The Dutch prospect is asked to be complete rather than exceptional, to understand the whole game rather than dominate one corner of it. For a nation of barely 17 million people, it produced an outsized share of football's greatest minds and most intelligent players. But each one gave up the simplicity of knowing exactly who he was on the pitch in exchange for understanding all of it. Portugal. Portugal, a small nation, sacrifices its players to the world the moment they become valuable. The structural reality is that Portuguese clubs survive financially by developing extraordinary talent and selling it abroad before it ever matures at home. The sacrifice is permanence. A Portuguese prospect knows his future lies in a bigger league, in a foreign country, that his homeland is a launchpad and never a destination. Cristiano Ronaldo left Madeira for Lisbon as a boy, then left Portugal entirely at 18, building a record-breaking career almost entirely on foreign soil. The country has produced a staggering number of world-class players for its size, and watched nearly all of them leave to reach their peak. Portugal develops greatness it can rarely keep, sending its best out into the world and celebrating them from a distance. Croatia. Croatia produces footballers out of a history no academy could ever design. The structural reality is that an entire generation of Croatian talent was shaped by war. by childhood spent under instability and displacement that hardened them in ways comfort never could. The sacrifice was made before football even entered the picture. The ordinary security of a peaceful childhood given up by circumstance. The Croatian player carries a resilience forged outside the game, a refusal to break that opponents cannot train into themselves. A nation of barely 4 million people reached a World Cup final, outlasting countries many times its size through sheer mental durability. Croatia doesn't produce the most players, it produces the hardest to break, and that hardness was paid for in a currency no footballing nation would ever choose. Nigeria. Nigeria produces immense talent and forces it through one of the most dangerous paths in world football. The structural reality is that for the African prospect, reaching Europe means navigating a system riddled with false agents, fake contracts, and exploitation that strands thousands of boys far from home with nothing. The sacrifice is safety itself. A Nigerian player often risks everything, family savings included, on a journey that, for most, ends in abandonment rather than a professional contract. The ones who make it carry a physical and mental toughness the European-raised player never has to develop. Nigeria has sent gifted footballers across every major league on earth, against odds that would stop most nations cold. The talent is abundant. It's the path that takes the price, and the player pays it long before anyone signs him. Japan. Japan asks its footballers to sacrifice the comfort of home and culture entirely. The structural reality is that to reach the highest level, the Japanese player must leave for Europe alone, into leagues where the language, the climate, and the culture share nothing with his own. The sacrifice is belonging, traded for development. He gives up the society that shaped him, the food, the family, the unspoken codes of home, to compete in a world built by and for someone else. Japan has quietly placed more players in Europe's top leagues than ever before, each one absorbing an isolation most fans never consider. The Japanese player doesn't just adapt to a new team, he surrenders an entire way of life, learning to perform at the highest level while feeling, every single day, like a stranger. Every footballing nation tells the same lie, that the talent simply appears. It never does. Somewhere behind every great player, a country quietly decided what it was willing to take from him first.